In 2021, a woman from Morocco gave birth to the world's only set of non-uplets, 9 babies born at the same time. The 5 girls and 4 boys were born via C-section at just 30 weeks, each only weighing between 1 and 2 pounds, but all miraculously survived. What's even more incredible is that they were the result of a naturally conceived pregnancy. For about 1 month every year, baby seals gathered to play in this waterfall north of Kaikoura, New Zealand. It's the only place in the world where anything like this is known to occur. If my eyes don't deceive me, I believe we're looking at a deliciously rare Kansas City strip. In 2015, blogger Andy George made a chicken sandwich completely from scratch. He grew his own veggies, traveled to collect ocean water to make salt, milked a cow to make butter and cheese, killed a chicken, and grew his own wheat for flour to make the bread. He spent 6 months and $1,500 and said the sandwich was okay. This photo was taken at a zoo in India just moments before this white tiger dragged this man into his den and mauled him to death. The man apparently climbed up the fence to get a better view of the tiger, but ended up slipping and falling into the cage. Flat earther and daredevil Mike Hughes died in 2020 after crash landing his rocket he made to prove that the Earth is actually flat. In 2011, 3 teenagers from Utah stood on some train tracks to take a selfie next to a passing train. But they didn't hear the second train coming from the other direction, and all 3 were killed almost instantly. In 2011, a New York man died while riding his motorcycle at a helmet law protest. Medical experts said the only reason he died was because he wasn't wearing a helmet. In 2022, personal trainer Tom Mansfield accidentally overdosed on caffeine. He apparently miscalculated the amount of powder he needed and drank the equivalent of 200 cups of coffee in one. There was a famous Jewish boxer named Salomo Aruch who was imprisoned at Auschwitz. He was forced to fight fellow prisoners and the loser was sent to the gas chambers. He survived more than 200 fights over a 2-year span until the camp was liberated. 80% of the males born in the Soviet Union in 1923 were killed during World War II. This is a group of teenage kamikaze pilots posing with a cute puppy on the day before their suicide missions in 1945. In 1951, an atomic bomb cameraman accidentally ripped off his safety goggles a few seconds before the bomb exploded. With no time to spare, he immediately covered his eyes with his hands, and when the bomb detonated, he saw the bones of his hands through his closed eyelids just like an X-ray. Dating back to 1100 AD, the Zhang Patriarch is a gold-painted papier-mâché statue that was stolen from a Chinese temple in 1995. Just a couple years ago, researchers scanned it and discovered the piece contained the mummified body of a famous Chinese monk. Here's an 18th century ivory carving that depicts the toothworm, a demon from hell that people used to believe was responsible for cavities and toothaches. Shaka bra. Here's an ancient Roman bronze sculpture of a hand giving the hang loose gesture made around the 2nd or 3rd century CE. Just last month, a 30-foot-long Native American canoe was discovered in a lake in North Carolina. It's estimated to be at least 1,000 years old. Thanks to LiDAR technology, archaeologists have been able to peel back the rainforests of Calakmul, Mexico, revealing an ancient Mayan city that was nearly 4 times the size of Manhattan around the year 700 AD. The Lion of Lucerne was built in 1821 as a memorial for the Swiss guards who were massacred during the French Revolution. Mark Twain himself described it as the most mournful and moving piece of stone in the entire world. 69. Here's a 2021 photo of Alec Baldwin breaking down in tears after firing a prop gun that killed the director of photography on the movie set of Rust. The tragic incident happened as a result of catastrophic failures in safety procedures on the set. The woman who was responsible for checking the firearms was only 24 years old and had very little experience in her role. Rust was her second film as lead armorer since she had previously worked on another Western film called The Old Way, where she received multiple safety complaints from the cast and crew. She also admitted on a podcast that she felt overwhelmed and underprepared for her job on Rust. The live round that killed Helena Hutchins and injured Joel Souza was not supposed to be on the set at all. The production had a very strict rule that banned any live ammunition on the premises, and only blanks or dummy rounds could be used. But it was later revealed that some of the crew members used the same guns for target practice with live rounds during their off hours. and had failed to properly clean and inspect the weapons before returning them to the armory. This iconic photograph of 28-year-old Marcy Borders covered in dust was taken just after the World Trade Center collapsed on 9/11. Marcy was a bank teller who worked on the 81st floor of the North Tower. She survived the collapse, but sadly died from cancer in 2014, likely caused by the toxic fumes she was exposed to. This is the gravestone of H.R. Giger, the Swiss artist and sculptor who designed the creatures for the movie Alien. On a British Airways flight in 1995, a woman was complaining of chest pain, so 2 doctors came over to check on her. They quickly realized she was suffering from a punctured lung and required immediate surgery. But the problem was they couldn't land for help since the increase in air pressure could kill her. So they performed mid-air surgery on her using a coat hanger, silverware, and a bottle of cognac for sterilization. Within 10 minutes, they'd saved her life. During the Holocaust, gay males were identified in concentration camps by downward-facing pink triangles. Because of this identification, many of them were still considered criminals after their camps were liberated. As a result, many of them were sent back to prison to serve out their terms. A Japanese soldier named Hiro Onada was stranded on an island for 30 years without knowing that World War II had ended. His commander had to travel to the island to personally dismiss him in 1974. American Lieutenant John Fox died after deliberately calling an artillery strike on himself. Realizing that German troops were overriding his position, the strike delayed the enemy long enough for other American units to organize a counterattack that ultimately won them the battle. The Spire wine bottle was found in 1867 in what used to be a part of ancient Rome. Dating back to the 4th century AD, it's believed to be the oldest unopened bottle of wine in the world. This staircase at the Hallstatt salt mine in Austria is 3,100 years old. It's the oldest known wooden staircase ever discovered. The average lifespan of koi fish in Japan is typically around 40 years. But born in 1751, a koi fish named Hanako far exceeded this average, reportedly dying at the age of 226 in the year 1977. This 3,200-year-old Egyptian tablet is considered to be the oldest attendance sheet in the world. Reasons for being absent included brewing beer, embalming brother, and bitten by scorpion. The first ever case of biofluorescence in Tasmanian devils was documented just last year at Ohio's Toledo Zoo. While typically observed in fish, this phenomenon has also been seen in certain squirrels, possums, and platypuses. It's unclear what purpose this incredible trait serves in land mammals, but scientists think it might be a way for them to identify each other and attract mates in the dark. Ken Allen the orangutan escaped from his exhibit at the San Diego Zoo at least 9 separate times in the 1980s. His apparent goals included observing other animals, throwing rocks at his orangutan rivals, and happily taking photos with tourists. Baffled by his continuous ability to escape, the zoo was forced to spend over $40,000 to eliminate any possible escape routes in his enclosure. Ken famously earned himself the nickname the Hairy Houdini. In 2019, a man was using Google Earth to check out his old neighborhood when he stumbled upon something spooky. A car containing the remains of a man who had been missing for 22 years. 40-year-old William Molt was reported missing in 1997 when he failed to return home after leaving a nightclub. 70 years ago, the United States learned about Joseph Stalin's death when a 21-year-old Air Force staff sergeant intercepted a coded message from Russia. That sergeant was none other than singer-songwriter Johnny Cash. In 2013, Margaret Arobio bought a Powerball ticket with random numbers and won the $360 million jackpot, or so she thought. The next day, she saw a media report claiming that nobody had won the jackpot yet. When she called the place where she bought the ticket from, they told her that she bought it an hour after the numbers were drawn. In 1996, a man's body floated up to a boat in the UK seas. There was no identification on the body except for a 25-year-old Rolex Oyster on his wrist. Since Rolex maintained such meticulous service records, they were able to identify the victim and ultimately his killer. This carved ivory model of an eye was used to help teach students the anatomy of the eyeball in the 1800s. It can be unscrewed from its base to show the different parts of the eye, including the cornea, pupil, and iris. Here's a 2,000-year-old jade burial suit from the Han Dynasty of China. All 3,200 of the jade tiles were stitched together using thin gold wire. Here's a nearly complete carnix from 100 BC that was found in France in 2004. Made in the shape of a snarling boar, it was a horn used by the Iron Age Celts to intimidate their enemies in battle. This was the great bathtub of ancient Roman Emperor Nero. Made of porphyry, it can be found in the Vatican museums of Rome. A Viking skull was found in Dorset, England, with lined grooves in its teeth. They were likely dyed red to frighten opponents in battle. This is the original marble throne of Charlemagne as it can be found in Aachen, Germany. Between the years 790 and 1531, it served as the coronation throne for 31 kings of Germany. Peter Freuchen was a 6'7" Danish explorer who was the real-life version of the most interesting man in the world. Throughout the 1910s, he rode thousands of miles across the Arctic by dog sled. On one occasion, he became trapped in an avalanche and was buried deep in a pile of snow and ice. Lacking any sharp weapon to escape, he created a dagger out of his frozen feces and broke through the ice with his bare hands. After crawling back to base camp for 3 hours, he noticed his toes had turned black, so he amputated them by himself with nothing but a pair of pliers. In the years that followed, he was the star of an Oscar-winning movie, wrote 32 books as an author, and became the 5th person to win the jackpot on the famous game show The $64,000 Question. In his later years, he became actively involved in the Dutch resistance and fought against Nazi occupation in Denmark. He was seen as such a threat to the Nazi movement that Hitler himself ordered him to be arrested and sentenced to death. The photo above shows Peter standing next to his third wife, wearing a coat made out of the polar bear that was unlucky enough to cross his path. In 2013, a young Japanese man began slithering on his parents' floor and acting erratically, claiming he had become a snake. His father then spent the next 2 days violently headbutting and biting him to, quote, drive out the snake that had possessed him. The man eventually died from blunt force trauma. In 2017, Minnesota woman Mona Lisa Perez killed her boyfriend by shooting him in the chest through an encyclopedia at point-blank range. Apparently, they were trying to make a viral YouTube video and didn't expect the bullet to penetrate the book. Just last month, an AI chatbot convinced a Belgian man to take his own life. Concerned about climate change, he apparently mentioned the idea of sacrificing himself so that the AI bot could save the Earth. Instead of dissuading him, the bot encouraged him to act on his dark thoughts so they could, quote, live together as one person in paradise. In 1663, part of the fossilized skeleton of a woolly rhinoceros was dug up in Germany. Nicknamed the Magdeburg unicorn, it resulted in one of the worst fossil reconstructions in human history. This was the sample case used by a neon salesman circa 1935. Dating back at least 12,000 years, Iran's ancient village of Mayan is said to be a primary human residence in the Iranian plateau. Close to 200 families still live in the hand-dug homes within the rocks, some of which have been inhabited for over 3,000 years. After 25 years of dealing with a strange dip in the floor beneath his couch, a man from Plymouth, England finally decided to investigate. After digging down into his home's foundation, he found a 33-foot deep medieval well with a 500-year-old sword inside. The sword's super lame looking, I wasn't gonna include it, but there you go. Octomom Nadia Sulman became notorious in 2009 when she had 8 babies as a result of in vitro fertilization. However, Nadia claimed that while she was heavily sedated, it was her fertility specialist that convinced her to have 12 embryos implanted in her at once. All of the babies miraculously survived, but the doctor had his license revoked for extreme malpractice. This violin was used by the lead member of the band that played on the Titanic. Just like in the movie, they continued playing as the ship went down. Former beauty queen Joyce McKinney made headlines in 1977 when she kidnapped 17-year-old Mormon boy Kirk Anderson from his church. According to Anderson, she chained him to her bed frame and forced him to be her sex slave for 3 straight days. But according to British law at the time, no crime of rape had been committed since the victim was male. Troy Hurtubise devoted his life to developing a suit that could fend off a grizzly bear, and was even permitted to go one-on-one with a 320-pound female grizzly. But sadly, he died in a car explosion just days before he was able to test out the design. It's rumored that when a pope dies, it's tradition to hit him in the head with a silver hammer to ensure that he's dead and not just sleeping. A pet Sphinx cat named Jazzy Purrs had to have both her eyes removed and now looks like a spooky skeleton cat. During a soccer match in 1989, 96 people were killed at Hillsborough Stadium in England after being crushed due to overcrowding, many of whom died while standing up. 22 years later, Stephen Whittle became the 97th victim. He had sold his ticket to a friend who ended up dying during the disaster. Unable to cope with the guilt, he took his own life by jumping in front of a train in 2011. In 1965, a Ukrainian farmer dug up the lower jawbone of a mammoth. Further excavations revealed 4 huts that were made completely out of mammoth bones. These 15,000-year-old dwellings are now recognized as some of the oldest surviving shelters constructed by prehistoric man. The oldest known deck of 52 playing cards is from the Netherlands circa 1475. They're currently housed at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City. This 900-year-old Indian sculpture of an elephant and a bull sharing the same head is said to be the oldest optical illusion ever found. The world's oldest cosmetic face cream was found inside of an ancient Roman temple complex dedicated to Mars. It's so incredibly well preserved that it still has finger marks inside of the lid. Thomas Wetters was a circus performer in Yorkshire, England throughout the 18th century. He was famously known for having a 7.5-inch nose, which was confirmed by the Guinness Book of World Records to be the longest nose in history by more than double. This is the only known footage of the extremely rare box jellyfish known as Chirodectus. Captured off the coast of Papua New Guinea, this was only the second ever sighting of the species in recorded history. This rare beef tenderloin was slow roasted to perfection. In 1930, the Indiana Bell Building was completely rotated 90 degrees in just 1 month. The 22 million pound structure was moved 15 inches per hour while 600 employees still worked there. There was no interruption to gas, water, electricity, or telephone service, and no one inside felt the building move. Out of the estimated 307 million lakes in the world, less than 30 of them are pink. The largest being Australia's Lake Hillier, which gets its natural bubblegum hue from a combination of red algae and bacteria. But the water is completely safe for humans to swim in. A sundog is an extremely rare weather phenomenon that produces bright spots around the sun. It happens when sunlight refracts off of ice crystals during perfect atmospheric conditions. There are over 38,000 McDonald's locations in the world, but only the one in Roswell, New Mexico is shaped like a UFO. This incredible award-winning photograph left scientists from all over the world completely astonished in 2018. At the very center of the image is a single atom suspended in motion by electric fields. What makes this photo so amazing is that it was captured with just an ordinary camera. When going to battle against enemies riding elephants, the Indian Rajputs would put fake trunks on their horses, making them appear as baby elephants which the enemy's elephants refused to attack. During the Cold War, CIA agents used a secret method of communication based on how their shoelaces were tied. In 1973, the U.S. Army developed an anti-tank grenade by hollowing out a Nerf football and filling it with explosive charges. But the ball never made it to the battlefield since the explosives gave it an unpredictable flight. Many warships used to be painted like optical illusions. The purpose of this dazzle camouflage was not to conceal the ship, but rather to mislead the enemy by making the ship's speed and range more difficult to estimate, much to the same effect as patterns seen on zebras, giraffes, and jaguars. Here's a 1997 photo of Las Vegas police facing Mike Tyson after he'd just bitten off the ear of Evander Holyfield during a boxing match. Tyson claimed he was in a primal, blacked-out state and literally wanted to kill his opponent. In 2013, a Brazilian woman confessed to lacing her cooter with poison so that her husband would die after going down on her. This fox drowned in a frozen lake and was cut out and displayed as a warning for people to keep off the ice. Just last week, an 88-year-old Frenchman caused an entire hospital to be evacuated for the strangest of reasons. He had a shell from World War I stuck inside of his anus, which the hospital considered to be a bomb threat, and a defusing team was called in. They determined the shell was not at risk of exploding, and it was surgically removed by doctors. As a child, Michael's father Joseph would constantly torment him about his appearance, often calling him Fat Nose. Michael went on to have 4 rhinoplasties and was insecure about his appearance his entire life. On one occasion in the 1960s, Joe wanted to teach his kids a lesson about leaving the windows open at night. So when little Michael was asleep, his father climbed through the window wearing a mask and screamed at him. From that point on, Michael would have recurring nightmares about being kidnapped from his bedroom. But the abuse didn't stop there. Joe would also hold onto a belt while the Jackson 5 rehearsed, ready to strike his children if one of them made a mistake. Michael was so terrified of his father that he would sometimes throw up just from his presence. Michael once said that he felt the safest while performing on stage since his father wouldn't be able to beat him in front of a crowd. In 1944, the Ghost Army was created as the first tactical deception unit in the U.S. Army. They used inflatable tanks, fake radio traffic, and loudspeakers blaring sound effects to throw off their enemies. The Ghost Army was able to make a force seem 30 times larger than its actual size, often sending the Nazis retreating. A U.S. naval destroyer once won a battle against a Japanese submarine by throwing potatoes at them, which the Japanese thought were grenades and quickly retreated. Ancient Persian leader Cambyses II once used cats to defeat an Egyptian army. Knowing that the Egyptians viewed felines as sacred, he brought hundreds of cats to the front lines and had his soldiers paint them on their shields. The Egyptians simply refused to fight and were easily defeated as a result. Disney's first water park, called River Country, closed permanently in 2001 after an 11-year-old boy died from a brain-eating parasite he got in the lake. The park still lies completely abandoned to this day. The actor who used to play Gaston at Disney World Orlando accidentally killed himself by attempting to shoot fireworks off his head. Disney World is one of the most popular places on Earth for scattering ashes. It happens so frequently that employees have a special code word to report it for cleanup. A study conducted in 2016 concluded that the Thunder Mountain Railroad reliably helps people pass kidney stones. In 2010, a restaurant manager at Disneyland Paris took his own life after working a shift. Before doing so, he left a note on the wall that translated to, "I don't want to go back to Mickey ever again." This was the last photo taken of legendary rapper Tupac Shakur just minutes before he was gunned down on Las Vegas Boulevard in 1996. Tupac was hit 4 times and was put on life support at a nearby hospital where he would end up dying a week later. His body was cremated the next day, and members of his rap group Outlaws smoked some of his ashes after mixing them with some kush. Here's a 1907 mugshot of Bertha Baranda after she was convicted of mayhem for slicing off her husband's penis with a straight razor. In 1939, Gone with the Wind actress Hattie McDaniel became the first ever African American to win an Oscar. When she was dying from cancer in 1952, her final wish was to be buried in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery in LA. But the request was ultimately denied since the cemetery had a strict all-white policy at the time. Here's an amazing video of Sandra the orangutan cleaning her enclosure and washing her hands at the Center for Great Apes in Florida. She learned to do this after observing her caretakers do the exact same thing. I don't know what to say. When this deaf man's cat realized that meowing was useless, the cat learned to communicate with him using signs. This clip shows him successfully requesting a treat at the dinner table. The penduline tit has evolved to develop a creative way for preventing snakes from entering its nest. The bird builds a hidden opening while making the visible entrance lead to an empty pocket that tricks the snake. The most valuable tooth in the world belonged to Sir Isaac Newton, who died nearly 300 years ago. In 1816, it sold for $3,600, which equates to more than $75,000 today. After fears that they were wiped out by bushfires, the rare pygmy possum was thankfully rediscovered in 2020. Located in various museums, these are the only 3 authentic Jolly Roger flags in the world. They were flown to identify pirate ships before or during attacks in the early 18th century. Spotted Lake in Canada features distinctive patterns due to its high concentrations of various minerals. The Formosan clouded leopard was declared legally extinct in 2013 after having no sightings since 1983. But in 2019, it was spotted for the first time in nearly 40 years in eastern Taiwan. Aeschylus was an ancient Greek playwright who is known today as the father of the tragedy genre. After receiving a prophecy that said he would die from a falling object, he spent most of his time outdoors. But he was killed when an eagle dropped a tortoise on him, mistaking his bald head for a rock suitable for shattering the shell of a reptile. Famous philosopher Kurt Gödel had an obsessive fear of being poisoned and therefore only ate food that was cooked by his wife. So when his wife went to the hospital for an extended stay, Gödel stopped eating completely and promptly starved to death. The first person to ever jump off the Brooklyn Bridge was a professional high diver. He wanted to demonstrate that people don't die simply from falling through the air, and he was correct. He fell 135 feet through the air without a problem, but hitting the water killed him immediately. This video shows the moment a chimpanzee at a Chinese zoo threw a water bottle at an innocent bystander. A male tourist apparently threw the bottle into the enclosure to mess with him, and the chimp retaliated with a perfectly calculated shot. Here's an incredible clip of what appears to be a friendly crow helping a hedgehog cross the street. Crows understand the concept of death and will try to avoid particular places that they deem dangerous. Elephants in Thailand have learned to exploit their right-of-way by forcing sugarcane trucks to stop so that they can steal a snack. With 3 times the amount of neurons compared to humans, this goes to show why elephants are considered to be one of the most intelligent animals in the world. Actor Joaquin Phoenix grew up in a cult called Children of God, which reportedly praised pedophilia. His parents even traveled to Venezuela to recruit followers, but have claimed they were unaware of any child predation. The family changed their last name to Phoenix to symbolize their new life after leaving the cult. Due to the skin's elasticity, it would take 3 full rotations to completely remove the human head. Don't ask how I know that. For the average adult, there are about 10 pounds of organisms living in and on you that are exclusively not you. There was a form of medieval torture where the victim's feet were covered in salt and a goat would start licking them. Known as tickle torture, it would become extremely painful once the skin was worn away by the rough tongue of the goat, creating a wound with salt slowly trickling in. Made sometime before 1834, this sealskin whaling suit from Greenland is the only complete suit of its kind in the world. The hunter climbed in through the center hole and made the suit waterproof by pulling the hole closed. In 1972, a man snorkeling along the coast of Italy called the police when he noticed a human hand sticking out of the sand. It ended up being 2 ancient Greek bronze statues that were sculpted around 500 BC. This ancient Roman temple theater complex was discovered in Italy by total chance in the year 2000. Located on the tip of a mountain, the complex dates back to the 4th century BCE. This 4,000-year-old golden ram and stone lion were found inside of a tomb at Göner Tepe in Turkmenistan. The finger in the background shows how small these figures truly are, a testament to the incredible skills of the craftsmen from this time. In 1731, King Frederick of Sweden sent a taxidermist his favorite lion after it died. But the taxidermist had never seen a lion before, so this was the result, the derpiest lion in the world. Here are some carbonized loaves of bread that were found in the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, both of which were buried in volcanic ash following the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. These stair dust corners were introduced in the 1800s to make sweeping easier. They would prevent dust from accumulating in the corners. Here's what the Great Pyramid of Giza looked like 4,500 years ago compared to today. All the pyramids were originally covered in polished white limestone, while the capstone at the top was covered in gold. In the summer of 2018 in Crete, a farmer was trying to park in the shade of an olive tree on his property. Suddenly the ground gave out and he discovered an ancient Minoan tomb that hadn't been touched in at least 3,400 years. Peo the French stallion is a 16-year-old therapy horse that provides comfort to patients suffering from terminal cancer. Each day he chooses which patients he wants to visit by kicking his hoofs outside their doors. This blind pregnant woman got her ultrasound 3D printed and was overcome with joy. In 2005, a bald eagle was shot in the face by a poacher, causing her to lose her beak. She struggled to eat anything and was on the verge of starving until a non-profit organization gave her a 3D printed prosthetic beak, making her even more badass than ever before. In 2020, a woman from Vancouver had a teddy bear stolen from her which had a voice recording of her deceased mother who passed away from cancer. But after celebrities like Ryan Reynolds offered a cash reward and helped make the story go viral, the teddy bear was soon found and returned. It's extremely rare for axolotls to go through a phase called morphing where they lose their gills and webbed feet and essentially evolve into a land creature. But it still happens occasionally as a result of dormant genes from their ancestors, like what happened to this one named Gollum. Found only in the swamps of southern Missouri, dragon scale calcite looks like it came straight out of Game of Thrones. Someone accidentally deleted important photos from their camera, so an image recovery software brought them all back, including this test shot where the camera was assembled in China. This rare tomahawk steak appears to have been cooked to perfection. In certain parts of England, you can find these wavy brick fences. This shape actually uses fewer bricks than a normal brick wall, since it only requires one layer of bricks to make it sturdy thanks to the arch support provided by the wavy pattern. When JFK was assassinated, he was wearing a corset to help with his chronic back pain. Experts say it likely restricted his body and prevented him from ducking down after the first shot. JFK's little sister Rosemary suffered from seizures and mood swings throughout her childhood. In response, her father arranged for a lobotomy when she was 23 and the surgery was botched. It left her unable to speak and permanently incapacitated until her death in 2005. The car in which JFK was assassinated was cleaned up and repurposed back into rotation. It served as the presidential limo for Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and Carter following JFK's death. In 1966, Kennedy's brain was stolen from the National Archives and has been missing ever since. Some theorize that it was stolen to hide the truth about his murder, while others believe that his brother Robert took it to conceal the number of medications that the president was on. A chimpanzee from Zambia was observed wearing a piece of grass in her ear for no apparent reason. But after other members of her group started copying her, researchers soon realized that this was the first fashion statement observed in the wild. In Moscow, Russia, packs of stray dogs have been known to send out a smaller, cuter member to beg for food. They apparently understand that it will be more successful than a bigger, less attractive member of the pack. Octopuses are considered to be the smartest invertebrate animals on the planet. On 3 separate occasions, Otto the octopus caused a power outage at his aquarium by climbing to the edge of his tank and shooting a jet of water at a bright light. He's also been seen juggling hermit crabs, throwing rocks at the glass, and rearranging the surroundings of his tank.